If you're a female and you fast, this video is going to give you tips that you need to get the most out of your intermittent fasting protocol. These are specific tips that work really well for women. Now, if you're not a female, I recommend that you share this video with your female counterparts. Share them with your significant others, share them with your friends that are women that are fasting, because honestly, it's very important that they follow some specific rules. You are tuned into the internet's leading performance, nutrition, and fat loss channel. We got new videos every single Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday at 7 a.m. Pacific time. A bunch of other videos throughout the week as well. I highly recommend that you hit that subscribe button. You're not going to be sorry. But I also recommend that you hit that bell button. It's going to allow you to turn on notifications so you'll know whenever I go live or post a brand spanking new video. So without further ado, let's get right into these. I'm going to talk about 6 tips that's going to change how you fast. Okay, the first one, ladies, you want to make sure that you're getting a tiny amount of soy in. Now this sounds crazy, right? Normally we hear that soy is not something we should be consuming. We don't want these estrogenic properties. We don't want that. But the reality is if we do it in moderation and we have some other things at play, which I'll explain in a second, we get a big benefit. For example, organic edamame. We're going to get a good soy effect from organic edamame, but it means we're going to get that estrogen effect. Now what ends up happening is normally soy is what's called a phytoestrogen, so the body sees it as estrogen, which means that it activates estrogen receptors, 1,7-beta estradiol. So what ends up happening if you have too much soy is you end up with way too much estrogen. Now, if you're a woman, you can have more estrogen. If you're a man, you probably shouldn't be consuming a bunch of soy. But here's the thing. If you add cruciferous vegetables along with your soy, you actually help your body metabolize the estrogen in a way that is actually beneficial for you. So first off, don't be afraid of broccoli, of cauliflower, of kale. Don't be afraid of the cruciferous vegetables. They are not going to slow down your thyroid. Okay, that's a common myth. Okay, because they contain something known as goitrogens, people assume that they're bad for you. Let me just explain this really quick. What goitrogens do, which of course are something that are in cruciferous vegetables, is they block some of the absorption of iodine into the thyroid, which is supposed to slow down your thyroid. But studies have shown that you need a ton of that to happen, and you need to be deficient in iodine already, which is very difficult to be. It's hard to be deficient in iodine. Okay, so let's forget that. Now the benefit of the cruciferous vegetables is what it does is it has something known as DIM in it. Okay, diindolylmethane, which is derived from something known as indole-3-carbinol. The names aren't important, but basically what it is it's something that helps the liver metabolize larger molecules of estrogen into easier to metabolize smaller molecules of estrogen. So therefore, you don't have the negative effects of the estrogen, you get the good effects of the estrogen, which is exactly what you want as a lady. So it's exactly what we're looking for. So don't shy away from a little bit of edamame and some broccoli during your eating window. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is controlling your caffeine a bit more than your male counterparts. All right, here's the thing. When we're fasting, we're already putting our bodies under stress. That quite honestly is the point. Okay, we stress our bodies out, so we burn more fat. We stress our bodies out, so we get those effects. Caffeine further adds to this stress. Now, here's the thing. Women are much more sensitive to the catecholamine response. They're much more sensitive to the stress as far as the reproductive system goes, as far as the hormones go. This makes it so that we really need to be careful there. Now, when it comes down to caffeine specifically with hormones in women, is it decreases the actual ability for the egg to drop through the fallopian tube. You see, it decreases the muscle activity. We need spontaneous muscle activity in the fallopian tube from what are called pacemaker cells to actually allow the egg to drop. Now, if we have too much caffeine, it sort of disrupts the electrical signaling. So we don't have the ability for those pacemaker cells to have the slow rhythmic wave that they need to drop the egg to the right place. So this obviously throws off hormonal cycles pretty significantly. And it's also why you see women that consume a lot of caffeine generally have a harder time conceiving. It has to do just with this process. So that begs the question, like, what are you supposed to consume during a fast? I mean, the thing is, like, I'm always touting the benefits of like coffee and tea during a fast, and you don't want to miss out on that stuff. So the reality is there are some things that you can consume. Now, I'm a good friend of Dr. Jason Fung, and we've worked together to create some specific Thomas DeLauer tea bundles, and these are fasting approved tea bundles. And these are ones that could work really well for women that are fasting. The reason is because they're bundles that contain teas like oolong. Okay, oolong is a little bit lower caffeine content, has a calming effect, but additionally, teas that have no caffeine. Okay, we're talking like hibiscus mint, like a beauty elixir. Still something that's going to allow you to have a tasty tea throughout the day when you're fasting, but without the caffeine impact. Now, additionally, we have digestive elixirs. Okay, these are teas that are going to help you out when it comes down to digesting, so you improve that gut motility, which is a big benefit of fasting. You improve that, but without the caffeine effect. Now, keep in mind, a little bit of caffeine is okay, like if you're getting it from some green tea, like the sencha or the jasmine that the peak tea crystals have. But the nice thing is there's theanine in there. Now, theanine sort of counteracts some of the caffeine from that. So theanine is known to be relaxing. It helps tilt the scale over to what's called GABA. I'm not going to go into detail there. Basically, it makes the brain a little bit calmer. The cool thing is that these teas come in what are called crystal form. So they instantize in water. Like you can just throw the powder in some water and you're going to have a tea, whether it's hot or cold, and it works out really, really well. So really perfect for women. Now the cool thing is, special discount down in the description below if you want to take advantage of these. I just don't want you to be totally caffeinated up if you're a female and you're fasting. So take advantage of it. Special bundles, Thomas DeLauer bundles that are fasting approved, link down in the description. Make sure you check it out after you finish this video. Okay, let's go ahead and move in to the next thing. You need to make sure that you're not fasting every single day. Now, I sound like a broken record, I talk about this a lot, but women especially fast every other day. Okay, here's the thing. What happens is women are more sensitive to the stress from fasting, which means they're more sensitive to the starvation signals. Okay, we have things called leptin. Leptin is very important, and if leptin is too low, we actually don't burn as much fat. Now, here's what ends up happening. We have a hormone, both men and women, okay, known as gonadotropin releasing hormone. What happens is the hypothalamus, a portion of our brain, releases this gonadotropin releasing hormone. And it triggers the pituitary gland to release what is called luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. These two hormones are so important. They are what trigger a female to ovulate, and they are what trigger a male to produce testosterone. Very, very important. Here's what's interesting. There's one master hormone that's super important, and it's called kisspeptin. This kisspeptin hormone is what has the power to flip the switch on or off with that GnRH, that gonadotropin releasing hormone. So the whole cascade that I talked about that produces ovulation and testosterone is regulated by kisspeptin. Here's the problem. Women have way more kisspeptin than men, meaning it's a much bigger lever for women than it is for men. So now what happens is when kisspeptin levels decrease, we don't produce as much of the hormonal cascade that we need. And if we're fasting, we end up producing less kisspeptin, which means for women, the stress from fasting is a lot more impactful than it is for men. Men can stand to reduce their kisspeptin a little bit. Women can't, because that's a big lever that we're pulling. So you want to fast every other day so we're not dramatically reducing these levels of kisspeptin. I promise you, you're going to get better results that way. It really will happen. Okay, the next tip, keep weight training. Don't give up on your weight training. People think that it's too high and too much intensity, right? They think it's too much work while they're fasting. The reality is that weight training is what's going to keep the muscle mass on you. The biggest reason you're losing weight with intermittent fasting is because your muscle mass is keeping your metabolism going. Very important. Now, in one study that was published in the journal Nutrients that found that weight training during caloric restriction ended up accounting for 93% preservation of the lean muscle mass. So basically, when you're on a diet or you're reducing your calories, if you weight train, you're going to preserve almost 94% of the muscle simply by touching a weight. So 3 days per week, some gentle weight training to keep the muscle on you, and it will make a big effect. Okay, don't forego the weight training. The next one is making sure you add potassium into your diet. Okay. Normally I talk about magnesium deficiencies, but for women with fasting, potassium is the big one. All right. Here's what happens. Fasting promotes the production of what's called aldosterone. Okay, aldosterone is a master hormone when it comes down to like our mineral corticoids and fluid retention and regulation. Long story short, aldosterone will throw off our mineral corticoids. It's going to make it so that you hold on to more sodium and you drop potassium. If you drop potassium, it can trigger hot flashes, but it also triggers other hormonal and mineral corticoid cascades. So we have to be very, very careful with that. So I highly recommend eating potassium-rich veggies, but just adding potassium into the mix. Take a potassium supplement here and there. Trust me, for women, it's much more important. And lastly, this goes whether you are fasting or not. Studies are starting to show that women are much more sensitive to dairy, okay? Specifically yogurts and given cheeses that are not required to label if they have what is called RBST. You've all seen the milk before that says from cows not treated with RBST. Okay, milk, it's a little bit more regulated, but cheese and yogurt, things like that, we have to be careful because they're not required to say if they are from cows that are treated with RBST or not. And let me just get to the gist of it. RBST, which is a hormone that's found in dairy, triggers the production of IGF-1. IGF-1 is very important to the development of the mammary system of a female. So now what we're finding is excess dairy consumption is leading to big amounts of IGF, which are leading to higher instances of breast cancer. When you are fasting, you're more sensitive to these IGF, insulin-like growth factor responses. The point is, control dairy or make sure you're getting it from an organic source that you know for a fact does not have RBST in it. Fasting is going to make you more sensitive to it, but the fact is, I'm trying to look out for you ladies no matter what. Whether you're fasting or not, the science is a little bit scary when it comes down to too much dairy. So be careful with butter, be careful with yogurt, be careful with cheeses, obviously be careful with milk, but it's easier to see on the label there. Just be very, very careful. And this is just kind of a good-hearted tip here. So I hope that this video gave you a good breakdown of some things that you can do when it comes to fasting. I highly recommend you take advantage of the Dr. Jason Fung Peak Tea Crystals and check out my specific bundles that are fasting approved. I think you'll get a big kick out of them. They'll help you out. Plus they taste good. So as always, thank you for tuning in, and I will see you in the next video.